Good morning and welcome to the 18th meeting of the Education and Culture Committee in 2013. Can I remind all present that all electronic devices should be switched off at all times. Can I welcome Mary Scanlon to the committee? She is substituting for Liz Smith. Good morning, Mary. Good to see you here again. Moving on to the first item on our agenda. The first item is consideration of 3 negative statutory instruments. The first instrument is the Children's Hearing Scotland Act 2011. Compulsory Supervision Orders, etc. Further Provision Regulations 2013. Can I ask members if they have any comments to make on this instrument? No, therefore can I put the question, does the committee agree to make no recommendation to the Parliament on SSI 2013-149? Thank you. The next instrument is the Children's Hearing Scotland Act 2011 Modification of Subordinate Legislation Order 2013. Can I ask members if they have any comments on this instrument? No. Therefore, does the committee agree to make no recommendation to the Parliament on SSI 2013-147? Agreed. Thank you. And our final negative instrument this morning is the Regulation of Care Social Service Workers Scotland Amendment Order 2013. Do members have any comments on this instrument? No. Okay. Therefore, does the committee agree to make no recommendation to the Parliament on SSI 2013-141? Agreed. Thank you. I'll suspend briefly. The next item is to take evidence on 6 related affirmative instruments as set out on our agenda. This item is an opportunity for members to ask the Minister and their officials any questions or to seek clarification on any points on the instruments. The committee will then separately be invited to consider the motions to approve the instruments under agenda item 3. Officials are not allowed, of course, to participate in that particular item. Can I welcome to the committee this morning Aileen Campbell, Minister for Children and Young People, Tom McNamara, Team Leader, Children's Hearings Team, Daniel Kleinberg, Youth Justice Team Leader, John McCutcheon, Youth Justice Policy Officer, Liz Blair, Senior Principal Legal Officer, and Graham McClashen, Principal Legal Officer, all from the Scottish Government. Good morning to you all. Can I invite the Minister to make a brief opening statement about all of the instruments?
Thank you, Convener. I'd like to begin with regulations concerning secure accommodation and movement restriction conditions. The secure accommodation regulations are concerned with the use of secure accommodation and in particular specify the circumstances in which children may be placed in secure accommodation and the procedure to be followed if a relevant order or warrant does not include a secure accommodation authorisation. The regulations also make provision in relation to the detention in secure accommodation of children who are subject to orders made by sheriffs under Section 44 of the Criminal Procedure Scotland Act 1995. The implementation of secure accommodation authorisation regulations make provision in relation to the decision-making process for the implementation of secure accommodation authorisations. The Children's Hearing Scotland Act 2011 Movement Restriction Conditions Regulations make provision in relation to the arrangements for monitoring compliance with a movement restriction condition included in a compulsory supervision order or interim compulsory supervision order. The Rehabilitation of Offenders Act 1974 Exclusions and Exemptions Scotland Amendment Order is of a technical nature and makes 2 amendments to the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act 1974 Exclusions and Exemptions Scotland Order 2013. You also have before you a draft order which will modify the Protection of Vulnerable Groups Scotland Act 2007. This order lists the positions and roles created by the 2011 Act, which will become subject to the PVG scheme. And finally, the last of the instruments I'd like to talk about is that which amends primary legislation in two main ways. The order contains provisions which makes consequential amendments to various pieces of primary legislation which are related to or have some form of cross-reference to children's hearings. These are made in consequence of the change from the 1995 Act to the 2011 Act. The order also amends the 2011 Act itself, making ancillary provision to give full effect to the 2011 Act provisions. So that's a brief summary of some of the very technical regulations that we're laying today, and happy, of course, to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that, Minister. Do members at this stage have any technical questions or points of clarification they wish to raise? Can I, Minister, ask one question on the Secure Accommodation Scotland Regulations 2013 draft order? The Subordinate Legislation Committee raised a point about the virus of that particular order. Can the Minister explain to the committee what the government's response is to the Subordinate Legislation Committee's points?
We believe it's compliant with what we intend to do, and we've made that point as well within the subordinate legislation list. Do you want to?
Yes. The Subordinate Legislation Committee's point concerned the commencement of certain provisions, and I think in referring the instrument to this committee, the Subordinate Legislation Committee said that if the government were to commence those provisions, and if that were properly done, they would advise that the point effectively fell away. We have now made a commencement order commencing the particular provisions that the Subordinate Legislation Committee were concerned with. That was laid before the Scottish Parliament on Friday, and it will come into force before these draft regulations are made. So effectively the point falls away.
This is the amendment of Section 75 to the 95 Act has now been laid, so that commencement order is now effectively coming into effect.
That's right.
Right, okay, that's fine. That answers that question. Any other points members wish to raise at this stage? Okay, can I therefore move on to agenda item 3. Having received a briefing on the instruments, we now have to consider formally the motions to approve them. We will do this separately for each instrument. First, I invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6807 on Children's Hearings Scotland Act 2011, implementation of Secure Accommodation Authorisation Scotland Regulations 2013.
Formally moved.
Thank you. Can I invite any comments from members on this order? I presume you don't wish to sum up?
No, that's fine. I'm happy to take it from there.
Okay. Can I put the question to the committee, therefore, that motion S4M 6807 be agreed to? Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I move on now to invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6806, which is the Children's Hearings Scotland Act 2011 Movement Restriction Conditions Regulations 2013.
Formally moved.
Thank you. Do members have any comments on this? Therefore, can I put the question that motion S4M 6806 be agreed to? Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6809? Minister.
Formally moved.
Thank you. Any comments from members? Nope. Therefore, the question is that motion S4M 6809 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6810?
Formally moved.
Thank you. Do members have any comments on this instrument? Therefore, the question is that motion S4M 6810 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. Can I invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6808?
Formally moved.
Members have any points on this one? Okay. Can I put the question that motion S4M 6808 be agreed to? Are we all agreed? Thank you. And finally, can I invite the Minister to speak to and move motion S4M 6811?
Formally moved.
Members have any questions on this one? Okay. Therefore, the question is that motion S4M 6811 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. The committee's report to the Parliament on the instruments will confirm the outcome of the debate. Can I thank the Minister and officials for attending this morning's committee meeting, and can I suspend briefly? Our next item is to consider the following petitions. Petition 1395 by Jan Kulik on the provision of targeted funding for lesser taught languages and cultures at Scottish universities, and petition 1440 by Sharon McCluskey on behalf of Play Scotland to include a statutory duty for play in the Children and Young People Bill. Can I take petition 1395 first and ask members if they have any comments on the issues raised by this petition? Liam.
Simply say, Convener, that I think the Petitions Committee itself has done a fairly thorough piece of work in relation to the petition. Certainly a number of the areas that I would have wanted us to cover as a committee, they appear to have already pursued. And to some extent, I suppose it could be argued that the petitioner has been fairly successful in securing a change in the position both at Glasgow University and I suppose across provision in Scotland. I mean, it perhaps falls short of what he's seeking. I'm not sure necessarily that's something as a committee we would be in a position to pursue, and therefore I'm not quite sure there's much more we're going to be able to do with this petition.
Mary?
I just thought that the petitioner had actually achieved quite a degree of success. I thought paragraph 11, where Glasgow University has decided as a result of the committee's involvement to reinstate the full honours Slavonic studies, I thought that was a point of success. And I also thought, Convener, the fact that the European Committee are looking into languages quite thoroughly, I felt that these were two markers for success in looking at the use and availability of languages. So I would be in favour of option 3.
Thank you. Claire?
Thank you, Convener. I'm a member of the European External Relations Committee, and obviously we have been looking into the 1+2 model of language teaching, and a great theme of that process has been looking at what our community language is. So I am really glad that the petitioner has been able to secure the commitment from Glasgow University. However, I wouldn't like to close the petition on that basis. I would maybe like to wait and see into the autumn how the term sets up with that new reinstated programme in place.
Okay. Neil.
Thanks, Convener. I'm familiar with this petition because I was a member of the Public Petitions Committee when it was first discussed at that committee. I think Eastern European and Slavonic studies are important educationally and economically to people in Scotland. For example, Polish is one of the most common languages spoken in Scotland, and we do a lot of trade with Eastern Europe, and there's obviously the potential always to do more. The petition obviously calls for targeted funding for small courses and rare areas of study, which these are, and I know similar targeted funding happens in England. I think it's a reasonable request, and although I would say that there appears to be some movement at Glasgow University, I think it's important that I think what the petition is aiming to do is ensure that it doesn't happen again, and that there is a strategic view of these subjects taken by the Scottish Funding Council, and I would certainly be in favour of keeping the petition open, and in actual fact I think we should be contacting the Scottish Funding Council and University Scotland, and indeed if necessary the Scottish Government, to determine what the strategic view is in terms of these subjects, because if it is, we do believe that these subjects should be taught and protected at Scottish universities, then we need to ensure that that happens.
Thank you. George?
Yes, I would agree with Claire that we definitely keep this open. Make sure that we keep this open, because as Neil Bibby's already mentioned, Eastern Polish is probably one of the largest languages out with English in Scotland itself. I know in England it's the second language. I don't know the results from the census up here in Scotland yet with regards to that. So I would probably say that my idea would be keep it open, and if we were getting any further information, it would probably be from the SFC, but that's difficult because I think the Petitions Committee's already asked on numerous occasions. So, but if we were going to ask anyone for further information, I'd probably suggest it would be the SFC themselves.
Yeah, I support both Claire and Neil in saying that we should keep it open. I think there is a balance between, you know, the academic freedom of the institutions and the autonomy of the institutions, and the need to provide courses that meet the needs of the economy and society. I would also ask the committee to pass on our congratulations to the petitioners, because they seem to have been very dogged in pursuing this and have achieved a level of success, and I think that's to their great credit. I would say that we should keep the petition open, and I noticed that the Funding Council was saying that they don't believe there is any reason to intervene. However, it may be that the committee could write to the Scottish Government to see what its view is on the kind of longer term strategic view of the provision of courses for languages such as these.
Okay, thank you. I think I would like to reiterate the comments by a number of members about the success of the petition. As far I know, it's not everything, but it's been I think it's been very successful, and that there is congratulations due to the petitioner on that basis. The reversal of the decisions by Glasgow University, I think, are a particular success, and I think that's to be welcomed. I do note, though, at paragraph 10 in your paper that the SFC, as you just raised, have made their view very clear on this, and I think there is a very difficult balancing act to be struck here about allowing the academic freedom of the institution and, of course, the desire of all of us to ensure the maximum opportunities for all courses to be taught and for it to be available for students to study in Scotland. So there is a balance to be struck there. I would agree that it would be slightly premature to close the petition at this stage, given the fact that, you know, I think although the university have stated that they wish to now reinstate these courses, it would be at least, I think, you know, reasonable to keep the petition open until the autumn to see how that goes. So I think that's reasonable. I wouldn't have any problem with writing to the SFC, although I think we will get back the same letter that they wrote back to the Petitions Committee. So I'm not sure whether members want to do that, but if they wish to do that, I don't think there's any particular problem. Sorry, Liam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, just to say, I think Claire's right. It's certainly in terms of the timing of keeping the petition open, there would seem to be a very strong case for keeping it open until the autumn. But I just wonder whether, rather than then keep the petition open indefinitely, it's worth us putting in a marker with the Funding Council at this stage to note the success of this petition, concerns were there to be a rolling back of provision in this area, which would perhaps enable us to go back and revisit the issue if needs be in the future, without necessarily requiring the petition to remain open indefinitely.
No, I think that's reasonable, entirely reasonable. But I mean, if members are, sorry, Neil,
just a wee bit kind of, I think it needs to be said. The petition is calling for for targeted funding to protect these, from the Scottish Funding Council to protect these courses. So although that kind of, it would appear that some of the courses have been put back in place are going to be, in terms of the success of it, it's not actually, there is no targeted funding being provided by the Scottish Funding Council, so I think we need to kind of note that.
Well, I mean, I think we do, but I think there's an issue. I think a number of members have already said, and I certainly would agree with that. You know, you cannot guarantee the provision of certain courses and not others. I mean, I think there's a real difficulty there about how much we intervene or interfere in the rights of institutions to provide courses which are relevant and which are indeed wanted by students. So I think there's a difficult balancing act there. I certainly would be very hesitant to start to intervene and say that there's ring fencing around particular courses and they cannot be touched, you know, and have guarantees that other courses don't have. I don't think that's our role. But at the same time, as I say, I think the petition has been successful, and at the same time, I'm also happy to keep it open, and I'd be also happy to write to the Funding Council along the lines that Liam has just suggested.
Part of the issue, as I understand it, I mean, Neil maybe will be more familiar having been on the Petitions Committee, but part of the issue was the decision that was initially taken by Glasgow University. But I think the other serious concern was the way in which that decision had been taken. And I suppose part of any letter that we might write as a committee at the Funding Council would perhaps reinforce the fact that lessons need to be learned from that, and that not only will we be keeping an eye on this issue, but our expectations about any process leading up to a review of this in future would need to be a good deal more transparent and open than was the case previously.
Just the other suggestion I made was that we write to the Scottish Government seeking their view on, you know, the sort of longer term strategic view of how we provide such access to such courses.
Well, I mean, there's two suggestions. Well, there's three, I suppose. One, we keep the petition open until the autumn, but it's not going to be kept open indefinitely. That we have a kind of finite date there, assuming that the courses do restart as have been stated by the university. Secondly, that we write to the SFC along the lines that Liam has suggested. And thirdly, we write to the Minister responsible for languages in the Scottish Government to ask what the Government's position is in terms of a strategic view of languages to education in Scotland. Members content? Okay, we'll do all three of those things. Can I now move on to petition 1440 on behalf of Place Scotland? Do members have any comments they want to make on this petition? Liam.
It just struck me that this is pretty much bread and butter for the evidence we're going to be taking as part of the bill. So, I mean, I assume that we can fold this into the process of evidence taking that starts on 25th with the bill team.
Yeah, it's as you say, it's part and parcel of what the bill's about. So, I would be quite happy for them to submit written evidence in terms of the bill.
Neil?
Yeah, just add to that. I mean, obviously we want children to play, and we want to encourage children to play, and it's important in terms of children's educational health and well-being. There are good initiatives across the country. For example, in Renfrewshire, the Street Stuff project is very good. Cost is obviously a major issue for local authorities, and any legislative basis in terms of what the petition is calling for would require appropriate funding. Understand the Scottish Government are developing a play strategy, which is a step forward, but I would agree with the suggestions that have been already made, that I think we should consider this as part of our approach to the children and young people. Bill.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously we already have issued a call for evidence on the bill, so can I suggest we write to the petitioner, I'm sure they're aware, but write to the petitioner and say that we would very much welcome written evidence from them about this issue, so that we can include it as part of our considerations of the bill when we return after the summer recess. And at the same time, given that we're going to do that, it seems perfectly reasonable to close the petition at this point, given we'll take it forward as part of the bill. Members agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you. That's agreed. Agenda item 5, our final item, is whether to consider our work programme and our approach to taking oral evidence on the Children and Young People Bill in private at future meetings. Are members content with that? Thank you. Thank you. But before I close the meeting, can I point out that the committee will now receive a private briefing from young people going through the care system in connection with their inquiry into decision-making around care. A note of that briefing will, of course, be published on our website in the not-too-distant future. Thank you, and can I formally close the meeting?